Diary, good evening. It's early November 2021, and the subject of this evening's video is the Appletax. I guess it's really a reaction to my partner's encouragement to me to press the button on the order of a 16-inch MacBook Pro. I guess in front of you you can see the configuration that I would prefer, and it comes up to a whopping £3,348, and that only gives me a 1-year Apple Care edition. It doesn't allow for years 2 and 3. So on the basis that they will be the same price, let's be generous to Apple and add in another £700. So we're going to call it £700 on top of the £3,348 for a gargantuan £4,100 to be fair. Come on, it's going to be £4,100. Now, instead of that, I'd already have bought and have documented via YouTube, and we've had posts on our simplification site, which I can show you, the Lenovo Ideapad 3. So I can go to the Lenovo configuration screen and you'll see that the laptop there is £800, and the extras that have been put onto that laptop would be let's say of about £300. Actually, there's a bit of cash back because I'll be selling the hard drive that came with the laptop and also the memory. But let's call it £300. So the price of the Lenovo laptop with a 3-year warranty is £1,100. So again, Apple is sitting at £4,100. Lenovo is sitting at £1,100. Now, if you were to go and look at the usability video, you can see the URL there, I hope. You can type that in and have a look at some of the factors that I found distinctly annoying with the Ideapad 3, because let's face it, it's the bottom tier of the Lenovo range. There is the Ideapad 5, which is a more professionally designed laptop, but at the time was unavailable to order and came with a much higher price. So I'm sticking with the Lenovo Ideapad 3. I can't return it now, it's past the 14-day window. It's been significantly upgraded. It's £1,100. You can read about the usability issues here. But nevertheless, the main reason for posting this critique is that Passmark, my favourite benchmarking site, have just put out the performance figures for the Apple CPU. So let's have a look, shall we? I have them already preloaded. So first of all, you'll see the Passmark CPU number for my Lenovo laptop is roughly 16,500, and drumroll for the Mr. Apples of this world, we've got we've got for the M1 Pro, which is what I'd be interested in. It's set the bigger number, 23,838. So a little calculation, one on the other, and you'll see that it's good. It's a decent amount faster. It's 44% faster. So that is a hell of a lot faster. In the Intel world, there are faster CPUs, but none that I can fit into this laptop. So if they had that CPU, I'd be getting 21625, which is a significant increase. But Lenovo don't put that chip into such a bargain priced Idea 3-pad laptop for £808. So what is my point? My point is that I've made a little list of all the things that I would have got for £4,100, and I'm going to drone on about them now and come to conclusion out loud as to whether I think it would be worth pressing the button and going ahead. So the performance we've already touched on. I mean, there's no doubt that the Apple is significantly quicker. It's got a 10 CPU count. I don't know if that comes up as threads because I don't have access to such a beast. But I can tell you that the Lenovo shows up as 8 cores and 16 threads. So under VMware, you can allocate those 16 threads as CPUs. So for example, the maximum speed of a guest could be, for example, 2 cores to the processor running the operating system, which for example could be Linux, and I could dedicate a whopping 14 cores to my VMware guest, for example Windows 10 or Windows 11 or Windows 2022 server, or any of a number of Linux. So from a CPU number point of view, I think I can probably add 14 CPUs on the Lenovo, and only let's say 10, or not 10. You have to have at least one really on your system. So let's say 9. But the numbers, of course, would make for a slower system on the Lenovo because you've got a much faster Apple system. Still, let's continue. MagSafe. Well, of course, I'd love a MagSafe connector, having had an old Apple laptop with such a beautiful design. MagSafe, yes. The crappy Lenovo barrel connector that I got on the Lenovo laptop, I wasn't expecting. I thought they were going to fit me a nice square Lenovo standard connector, but they cheapened out on Ideapad 3. On Ideapad 5, you do get the standard rectangular Lenovo power connector. Larger screen on the Apple. Going to screens, we've got a 16-inch Apple screen, and I've only got a 15.6-inch screen, so Apple wins on that. I'm not much into high pixel resolution screens. My last laptop had a 4K screen, and you know what? That's just so many pixels to manipulate via a GPU. I don't miss only having a full HD screen on the Lenovo. The next point is beauty. Well, of course, the Apple MacBook Pro is very beautiful. Quality physical construction, which I don't think you see anywhere to that extent in the PC world. So from a beauty point of view and a look at me, I've got a MacBook Pro, I'm at the airport point of view, you're never going to match Apple, because their physical design, I have to give them 101% credit for on the footballer scale. Superior, absolutely superior. Next, moving on to the camera, I still have a full HD camera on my Lenovo Ideapad 3. The Mac's got a 1080p camera, about time too. It's the first time they've deigned to put such a camera resolution on their laptop. But guess what? I've got a privacy filter on, a physical privacy shutter on my laptop, so I can just physically switch that camera off without any question of it being on. Beat that, Apple. Multiple screen support. Well, I've just been checking this out recently, and under Windows I can add another 2 screens, but I can't add the second screen. I can add one 4K screen and a second screen at full HD, but it's a bit clunky. I do need 2 cables. I tested out my partner's M1 MacBook Air, and she can add 2 4K screens just like that. So with the 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports of a MacBook Pro, you can add 2 more screens without any problem. So yeah, Apple, you win again. Next we talk about emulation, and I think there we have a resounding win to Lenovo, because Apples can only run Apples. So with the move to their proprietary implementation of ARM architecture, they've cut off access to VMware's Intel emulation. And as someone who's frequently dabbling about with multiple different operating systems, I absolutely love VMware. So potentially VMware under the Lenovo should be able to run all of Windows, Linux, and a cheeky copy of Mac OS. However, turns out that AMD processors, didn't know this till I bought, AMD processors can't really run Mac OS. I gave, as a test, a Mac OS emulation under VMware on the Lenovo, a whopping 32 gigabytes of memory. I gave it 14 processor cores, and it was running so slowly that I could actually type faster than it could display on the screen. So just to repeat, for all you enthusiasts out there, Intel emulation of a Mac product under VMware is technically possible, but doesn't work, practically speaking, with an AMD processor. But having said that, on the laptop I can run any number of 64-bit Linux Intel processor Linux. I can run any number of 16-bit and 32-bit operating systems based on Intel technology, and I do that much of the time. And if I was to go for this MacBook Pro, how would I do that? I think the answer is you can't do that, or not at this moment. There's been a few dabblings of trying to get Linux to work on MacBook Pros, but obviously things like driver support isn't there because Apple doesn't release any details. So people have tried to get some things working, and there's a few. I mean, hats off to them. People have got much further than I thought they'd ever get, but it's not really a production environment. And if you run VMware under your Lenovo, you're going to have a superb emulation experience. Okay, moving on to some of the last things. USB ports. Well, on the Apple, I have to give them credit for having USB-C ports with Thunderbolt. That's a brilliant design, but I think still for compatibility, a lot of people use full-size USB Type A ports. You don't have that. I have two USB Type A ports on my system with varying degrees of incompatibility, I have to say. Since it's not an Intel processor, I don't get Thunderbolt, which I wasn't expecting, of course. But I've had some compatibility issues with the USB 3 port, I can tell you. And the USB-C port is not much better. So yeah, I'll give that to Apple, even though from a usability standpoint, it's very useful to have a full-size USB port, even in 2021, because manufacturers of peripherals just don't want to change to USB-C. So back to the original point, Apple comes in at $4,100 for a 3-year Apple Cared device. Lenovo is hitting around £1,100 for a 3-year warranted device. From a PassMark benchmark point of view, which is why I started all of this analysis, I was excited to find that my Lenovo isn't that far behind. At about 16,500. It's better. It's honestly a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I thought the M1 Pro was going to be wiping the floor with the processor well into the 30,000s, but it's only 23,800. So how about that? Not so fast, Apple, overall. So I haven't pressed the ordering button on the Apple. It's a lot of money to spend, and I just don't think the return on my £4,000 plus investment would be realised. So no MacBook Pro today, unless there's a Paul's win, or as we say, a lottery win in these current times. Okay, Dari, thanks for listening and watching, and I hope you understand why I'm sticking with Mr. Lenovo.